There is a profound complexity that resides within the mind of the man who overthinks. He does not merely think, he dives deep into the labyrinth of his thoughts, analyzes every shadow, and contemplates every possible outcome. This mental tendency is often misinterpreted as indecisiveness, a simple inability to make a choice. Yet, beneath the surface of what appears to be confusion or hesitation, there lies something far more intricate than mere vacillation. The overthinker is not simply concerned with the present moment, he is engaged in a tireless dissection of his past and a speculative dissection of his future. His mind, instead of resting on immediate reality, is stretched into a constant state of reevaluation. Every word spoken, every gesture made, every seemingly insignificant decision is scrutinized for deeper meaning. This form of thinking, though it may seem excessively burdensome to the one who lives it, is not without its roots in the very nature of our being. To overthink is in some respects to be acutely aware of the world around you. The world is not taken at face value but seen through a lens of continual analysis. This intense awareness leads to a kind of hyper-consciousness, where even the smallest details of life carry with them an immense weight. The man who overthinks does not see the world in the way others might. He sees the shadows in the corners of his perceptions, the gaps between his words, the hesitation in the eyes of others. He cannot turn away from the complexity of the world because he is bound to it. Consider the experience of the overthinker in the simplest of interactions, say a conversation with another person. What seems to others like a passing moment, an exchange of pleasantries, or even an argument, is for him a complex web of emotions, intentions, and consequences. He may spend hours analyzing the conversation afterward, thinking not only about what was said, but about what was unsaid, what could have been said, and what the other person might have meant by their words. Did they mean what they said, or was there a hidden agenda? Did they laugh because they were genuinely amused, or was it a forced response? Every nuance is examined, broken down into fragments of possibilities, each carrying its own potential implications. In such moments, the overthinker is often trapped in a cycle of analysis, unable to escape the never-ending cascade of questions. Each answer he arrives at only leads to more questions. He might think to himself, if I had said something different, would they have reacted differently? And this question, simple on the surface, leads him into a deeper spiral. What was the true motivation behind his own words? What do his actions reveal about his character? What are the hidden layers of meaning behind his behavior and the behavior of those around him? This never-ending cycle is not simply the result of insecurity or an unwillingness to trust oneself. It stems from a desire to understand, to reach a clarity that seems always just out of reach. The overthinker feels that if he could only untangle the knots of his thoughts, he would reach an understanding that could guide him through the complexities of life. This striving for understanding, however, often becomes its own obstacle. The more he seeks clarity, the more elusive it becomes. Each question leads him into a maze with no exit. The clearer he tries to make things, the more layers of ambiguity he uncovers. But this is not to say that the overthinking mind is merely a burden. It is also a source of profound depth. The ability to see the multiple layers of reality, to recognize that things are never as simple as they seem, opens up a richer understanding of existence. The overthinker is often a person who has learned to hold multiple perspectives at once, who sees the interconnectedness of things, and who is sensitive to the subtleties that others might overlook. The overthinker's mind is, in many ways, a mirror of the complexity of life itself. Life is not composed of easily understood or simple answers. It is a mess of contradictions, conflicting desires, and impossible choices. In this sense, the overthinker is simply in tune with the chaos that life presents. However, this deep awareness does not come without its costs. The overthinker often finds himself plagued by doubts, anxiety, and a constant sense of being overwhelmed. Every decision is fraught with the possibility of failure. The overthinker's mind constantly weighs the potential consequences of every action, creating an endless stream of possibilities, each one more complex than the last. The weight of this mental burden can become paralyzing. The overthinker may find himself unable to make decisions, frozen in place by the enormity of what might happen next. The idea of making the wrong choice becomes so terrifying that it can seem easier to make no choice at all. At the root of this anxiety lies a fear of making mistakes, a fear of misinterpreting the signals of the world, a fear of acting in ways that are not aligned with the true self. The overthinker is not merely afraid of the external consequences of his actions, but of the internal consequences, the fear of failing to be who he believes he ought to be, the fear of revealing something about himself that he cannot accept. This deep-seated fear is often what drives the need to analyze everything, to understand everything before taking any action. In some ways, the overthinker is engaged in a process of self-protection. He believes that by understanding every possible angle, he can shield himself from the pain of regret, from the sting of embarrassment, from the horror of making a mistake that cannot be undone. This desire to shield oneself from harm, however, often leads to more harm. The more the overthinker seeks to protect himself, the more he isolates himself from the world around him. He becomes trapped in a web of self-criticism, perpetually questioning his actions, doubting his motives, second-guessing his every move. This isolation deepens the sense of alienation. The overthinker is often not only estranged from the world but from himself. The fear of making mistakes leads to a disconnection from the very essence of being human: imperfection, vulnerability, and growth. In this sense, the overthinker's greatest challenge is learning how to let go. The need for certainty, for total understanding, for complete control is a trap that ultimately leads to dissatisfaction and despair. Life does not offer simple answers, nor does it present itself as a puzzle that can be solved by analysis alone. There is something deeply freeing in accepting the ambiguity of life, in recognizing that not every question needs to be answered, not every situation needs to be understood, and not every moment needs to be dissected. Yet, letting go is not an easy task. It requires the courage to step into the unknown, to face the uncertainty that the overthinker is so deeply afraid of. This requires trust not only in the world but in oneself. The overthinker must come to accept that making mistakes is not a flaw but an integral part of being human. It is in the mistakes, the failures, the moments of confusion and doubt, that growth occurs. Every misstep is an opportunity to learn, to refine one's understanding, and to build resilience. In order to break free from the cycle of overthinking, one must embrace the inherent messiness of life. There is no perfect answer, no flawless decision. The pursuit of perfection is ultimately futile, because perfection is a static ideal, while life is constantly moving, shifting, evolving. The overthinker must learn to flow with life, to make decisions with the understanding that no decision is ever truly final, and that every path contains its own set of rewards and challenges. The key to overcoming the trap of overthinking is not to avoid thinking altogether, but to recognize when thinking becomes an impediment to action, when it transforms from a tool of clarity into a tool of paralysis. This transformation requires a shift in perspective. The overthinker must learn to approach decisions with a sense of confidence, with the understanding that he is capable of navigating the uncertainties of life. He must trust that even when the future is unknown, he can adapt, he can change course, and he can find meaning in the journey itself. This does not mean abandoning careful thought or consideration, but it means recognizing that overanalysis is not the same as understanding. The overthinker must embrace the idea that life is as much about action as it is about reflection, and that sometimes the best way to understand the world is not through endless contemplation, but through living it. In the end, the man who overthinks must come to understand that his mind in all its complexity is both a gift and a challenge. It allows him to perceive the world with extraordinary depth, but it also demands a great deal of energy and self-restraint. The key lies in learning how to strike a balance between thought and action, between reflection and experience, between certainty and uncertainty. Only by embracing this balance can the overthinker begin to navigate the world with clarity, peace, and purpose. Overthinking arises from a deep desire to understand, analyze, and gain clarity, but it often leads to paralysis and anxiety instead of resolution. The more the individual seeks certainty and control, the more trapped they become in a cycle of analysis where no decision feels final and every action is burdened with excessive scrutiny. At the heart of overthinking is a fear of making mistakes or being misinterpreted. This fear leads to excessive self-criticism, doubt, and a constant need to understand every possible outcome before taking any action. However, this fear disconnects the individual from the natural process of growth, which often comes through embracing imperfection, mistakes, and vulnerability. True growth lies in accepting the inherent messiness of life, where not every question has an answer and not every decision is perfect. The overthinker must learn to trust both themselves and the world by letting go of the need for total understanding, recognizing that life's unpredictability offers opportunities for learning, adaptability, and resilience. Overthinking is a phenomenon that many people can relate to at one point or another in their lives. It is a state of mind where a person constantly evaluates and reevaluates situations, choices, or decisions, often obsessing over the tiniest details. The paradox of overthinking is that, in an attempt to gain clarity, the overthinker often ends up more confused and paralyzed by the sheer amount of possible outcomes they envision. Instead of reaching a clear resolution, overthinking creates an overwhelming mental noise that only amplifies doubts and uncertainties. At its core, overthinking arises from a deep desire to understand, to make sense of the world, and to control outcomes. The overthinker believes that by thinking things through in an exhaustive and meticulous manner, they can anticipate every possible consequence, prevent mistakes, and ultimately make the best decision. This is rooted in the belief that certainty will bring peace of mind. In the overthinker's mind, clarity is synonymous with safety, and by seeking to understand everything, they can avoid the risk of failure or regret. However, the paradox emerges when this desire for clarity and control leads to an overwhelming sense of confusion. The more the overthinker tries to dissect a situation, the more variables they identify. Each possibility they consider leads to another branch of possibilities. What starts as a simple decision, like choosing between two options, quickly spirals into an endless cycle of what-ifs and potential outcomes, each more complex and intricate than the last. The result is a sense of paralysis. The overthinker is no longer able to act decisively, as every option now seems equally fraught with risk, uncertainty, and potential consequences. In fact, overthinking can be described as a mental loop where the overthinker spins through various potential scenarios without ever landing on a concrete solution. The constant revisiting of a problem or decision only serves to deepen their sense of confusion and anxiety. Rather than solving the issue, overthinking magnifies the problem, highlighting the ambiguity and complexity of life. It creates the illusion that the more time and energy spent on thinking, the more likely they are to uncover the perfect solution. Yet, the longer the overthinker dwells on a matter, the more elusive that perfect solution becomes. This paradox is evident in both big decisions and smaller everyday matters. Consider the example of someone preparing for an important presentation at work. The overthinker might analyze every detail: what to wear, how to begin the presentation, how to phrase every sentence, how to address potential questions. While these considerations are important, they become overwhelming when the individual continues to second-guess every decision, looking for ways to optimize every aspect of the presentation. The more they analyze, the more the fear of making a mistake grows. Eventually, they might find themselves unable to make a choice or take action at all, frozen by the endless scenarios in their mind. On a broader scale, overthinking becomes especially problematic when it concerns major life choices, such as career changes, relationships, or moving to a new place. The overthinker, in an attempt to make the best decision, runs through all possible outcomes and ramifications, considering every factor in the equation. What will this choice mean for their future? What will others think? Will they regret it? What are the risks, and how will they handle them? Each question adds another layer of complexity to the situation, and what could have been a straightforward decision turns into a monumental, paralyzing dilemma. At the heart of the paradox is the desire for certainty. The overthinker believes that by gaining a deep understanding of every possible scenario, they can ensure a favorable outcome. Yet, life is inherently uncertain. No amount of overthinking can predict every variable, every nuance, or every unforeseen circumstance that will arise. The more one tries to control the future through thought, the more one realizes that control is an illusion. The outcome of any situation is shaped by an unpredictable blend of factors, some within our control, but many beyond it. The paradox is that, in seeking certainty, the overthinker is often left with even greater uncertainty. One of the most insidious aspects of overthinking is its ability to distort perception. The overthinker, caught in their mental loop, starts to exaggerate the significance of each decision. What seemed like a simple choice becomes a monumental event with far-reaching consequences. The fear of making the wrong decision is amplified, and what may have once seemed like a manageable risk now feels like a catastrophe waiting to happen. This exaggeration of potential consequences can paralyze the overthinker, making them afraid to take any action at all. In their mind, every choice carries the weight of the world, and the possibility of failure becomes overwhelming. In reality, most decisions are not as consequential as they appear in the mind of the overthinker. Life rarely follows the neatly laid out paths we imagine when we spend too much time considering all possible outcomes. Mistakes and setbacks are an inevitable part of life, and even when things go wrong, they are rarely as disastrous as we fear. Overthinking, however, amplifies the perception of risk, making even the smallest decisions seem like life-altering choices. The overthinker becomes trapped in a cycle of hesitation, unable to act because they fear the consequences of a decision they are unable to predict. Another significant aspect of the paradox is that overthinking can lead to decision fatigue. When faced with constant mental deliberation, the overthinker's cognitive resources are drained. The mind, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of possibilities and uncertainties, loses its clarity and focus. The result is often an inability to make a clear decision or to act in any direction. In a state of decision fatigue, the overthinker may find themselves indecisive or completely disengaged, unable to summon the mental energy needed to take action. The paradox of overthinking also extends to relationships. The overthinker often projects their inner turmoil onto their interactions with others. They may constantly wonder how they are being perceived, whether their actions are misunderstood, or whether they have said the wrong thing. In a romantic relationship, for example, the overthinker might obsess over every word or gesture, questioning whether they've done something to upset their partner. They may overanalyze the tone of voice, facial expressions, or body language, looking for hidden meanings or clues about how the other person feels. This constant rumination only serves to create unnecessary tension and anxiety, damaging the relationship. In truth, most interactions are far more straightforward than the overthinker believes. Relationships thrive on communication and understanding, not on constant scrutiny and second-guessing. The paradox also holds true in the way the overthinker relates to their own thoughts and emotions. The more one tries to control or suppress emotions, the stronger they become. Overthinking can prevent the overthinker from fully experiencing their emotions or processing them in a healthy way. Instead of feeling their emotions in the moment, they become trapped in a cycle of reflection and analysis. This leads to emotional confusion, as the overthinker is constantly looking for explanations and justifications for how they feel, rather than simply allowing themselves to experience their emotions without judgment. It is important to recognize that overthinking is not an inherently negative trait. At its core, overthinking arises from an intellectual desire to understand, analyze, and avoid mistakes. In moderation, this tendency can lead to thoughtful decision-making and careful consideration. However, the paradox emerges when this natural tendency spirals out of control, preventing the overthinker from taking action or making decisions. Overthinking becomes a self-sustaining cycle, where the search for clarity leads only to more confusion, and the desire for control fosters a deeper sense of uncertainty. To break free from this paradox, the overthinker must learn to embrace uncertainty and imperfection. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often unclear. The more one tries to control every aspect of life through overthinking, the more they realize that complete control is unattainable. Rather than striving for certainty, the overthinker must learn to make decisions with the understanding that no decision is perfect. Every choice carries risks, and the outcome is never fully known. The key to breaking free from overthinking lies in accepting that some things are simply beyond one's control, and that it is okay to move forward without having all the answers. This acceptance of uncertainty does not mean abandoning thought or consideration altogether. It means recognizing that overthinking can be an impediment to action and growth. The overthinker must learn to trust themselves and their instincts, even when they cannot predict every possible outcome. In doing so, they can break the cycle of analysis and move forward with confidence, knowing that each decision, no matter how imperfect, is an opportunity for growth and learning. Ultimately, the paradox of overthinking is a challenge that many people face in a world that values certainty and control. While overthinking arises from a desire to make the best possible choices, it often leads to confusion, paralysis, and anxiety. The key to overcoming this paradox lies in embracing uncertainty, accepting imperfection, and trusting the natural process of decision-making. In doing so, the overthinker can find clarity and peace, not through exhaustive analysis, but through the act of living and experiencing life as it unfolds. The fear of imperfection is one of the most profound and paralyzing forces that shapes human behavior. It is the deep-rooted anxiety that drives individuals to seek flawlessness in themselves, in their work, and in their lives. This fear manifests in countless ways, from the relentless pursuit of perfection in one's career, to the desire for unblemished relationships, to the unattainable standard of physical or emotional perfection in our personal lives. It is an insidious force, one that often operates below the surface of conscious awareness, yet it influences nearly every action, thought, and decision we make. At its core, the fear of imperfection is tied to the concept of failure. Imperfection and failure are often seen as synonymous, and as such, the fear of being imperfect is also the fear of being seen as a failure. In this sense, the fear of imperfection becomes a defense mechanism, a strategy to avoid the painful experience of failure, rejection, and judgment. The desire to appear perfect or to be perfect becomes an attempt to shield oneself from the potential emotional harm that comes with not meeting one's own or society's expectations. In a world that increasingly emphasizes success, achievement, and outward appearances, the fear of imperfection is often magnified, creating an overwhelming pressure to live up to an ideal that is often unattainable. The roots of this fear can be traced to early childhood experiences, where imperfection was often met with criticism, ridicule, or punishment. Children learn very early that mistakes can have consequences, whether through the disapproval of a parent or teacher, the mockery of a peer, or the sense of shame that accompanies failure. These early experiences create an internalized belief that imperfection is unacceptable, and that failure is something to be feared and avoided at all costs. As a result, individuals who fear imperfection often go through life seeking validation from others, desperately trying to prove that they are worthy and competent, not through genuine self-expression, but through the creation of a flawless exterior. The pursuit of perfection, therefore, becomes an attempt to gain approval and avoid the pain of rejection or failure. It is through our flaws and mistakes that we grow, learn, and evolve. In fact, imperfection is what makes us relatable, authentic, and compassionate toward others. It is the shared human experience of struggling and overcoming that binds us together. When we embrace our imperfections, we open ourselves to vulnerability, which is the gateway to connection and growth. It is in the moments of failure, loss, and imperfection that we often find our greatest strength and resilience. In order to overcome the fear of imperfection, one must first learn to embrace the concept of good enough. Perfection is an ideal that does not exist, and the pursuit of it only leads to frustration and disappointment. Instead of striving for flawless outcomes, individuals can shift their focus to progress, growth, and authenticity. This shift in perspective allows for greater acceptance of oneself and one's limitations, fostering a sense of self-compassion and understanding. By letting go of the need for perfection, individuals can free themselves from the constant pressure to meet unrealistic standards and begin to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Learning to embrace imperfection also involves accepting failure as a natural part of the journey. Mistakes and setbacks are not signs of inadequacy, but opportunities for growth and learning. When we are able to view failure through this lens, we become less afraid of making mistakes and more open to taking risks. This shift in mindset allows us to approach life with greater confidence and resilience, knowing that we are capable of overcoming challenges and learning from our experiences. Another important aspect of overcoming the fear of imperfection is cultivating a mindset of self-compassion. Instead of harshly judging ourselves for our perceived flaws, we must learn to treat ourselves with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that we would offer a loved one. Self-compassion allows us to acknowledge our imperfections without judgment and to offer ourselves grace in times of difficulty. It is through self-compassion that we can break free from the cycle of self-criticism and begin to live more authentically and fully. Ultimately, the fear of imperfection is not something that can be eradicated overnight. It is a deeply ingrained belief system that requires time, patience, and practice to overcome. However, by learning to embrace imperfection, accepting failure as part of the journey, and cultivating self-compassion, individuals can free themselves from the constraints of perfectionism and begin to live more fully and authentically. The fear of imperfection, while powerful, need not define us. Instead, by embracing our flaws and accepting ourselves as we are, we can begin to experience the richness and depth of life in all its messy, imperfect glory. Embracing uncertainty is an essential part of the human experience, and it is often one of the most difficult challenges we face in life. It requires us to relinquish our need for control, to embrace the unknown, and to trust in the unfolding of life as it comes. At first glance, uncertainty may seem uncomfortable, even terrifying. It takes us out of our comfort zone and forces us to confront the unpredictable nature of existence. However, when we step back and reflect, we realize that uncertainty is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather something to be welcomed, for it is the fertile ground in which personal growth, creativity, and transformation thrive. The discomfort that comes with uncertainty is rooted in our inherent desire for stability, predictability, and control. As humans, we are wired to seek safety and security, both in our external environment and within ourselves. The familiar and the known give us a sense of comfort and stability. When things are certain, we can plan, anticipate, and feel confident that we know what to expect. This illusion of control provides a sense of comfort, and it allows us to move through life with a certain level of ease. Yet, the very nature of life is uncertain. No matter how hard we try to predict or control the future, there will always be elements beyond our control. This fact can be unsettling, especially when we are faced with challenges, transitions, or major life decisions. It is in these moments of uncertainty, however, that true growth can occur. When we face situations where the outcome is unknown and the path ahead is unclear, we are presented with an opportunity to expand, evolve, and learn. It is precisely because life is uncertain that we are able to stretch beyond our limitations, discover new possibilities, and deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The uncertainty of life pushes us to develop resilience, adaptability, and the courage to move forward in the face of the unknown. Embracing uncertainty is not about passively waiting for things to unfold or surrendering to chaos. It is an active choice to engage with life as it is, without needing to have every answer or solution before we take action. It requires the trust that even in the midst of uncertainty, we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. It is the recognition that we do not need to have all the pieces of the puzzle before we begin. We only need to take the first step, trusting that the path will reveal itself along the way. The process of embracing uncertainty begins with a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing uncertainty as something to avoid, we must learn to see it as a natural part of life's unfolding. We must release our attachment to certainty and begin to view the unknown as a space of possibility and potential. In fact, uncertainty is often where the greatest opportunities for growth lie. When we are not bound by preconceived notions or rigid expectations, we are free to explore new paths, take risks, and open ourselves up to experiences that we might have otherwise overlooked. It is in the unknown that we are invited to be curious, to experiment, and to grow beyond the limitations of our current understanding. For many, uncertainty brings about a sense of anxiety. It is easy to feel overwhelmed by the unknown, to become paralyzed by the fear of what might happen. However, anxiety is often a natural response to uncertainty, and it does not have to define us. Rather than letting anxiety control us, we can learn to sit with it, to acknowledge it, and to move forward despite it. By practicing mindfulness and acceptance, we can cultivate a sense of inner calm and presence even in the face of the unknown. When we let go of the need to control every outcome, we create space for peace to emerge, knowing that uncertainty is not a threat, but a challenge that we are capable of navigating. One of the most profound aspects of embracing uncertainty is the ability to let go of perfectionism. Perfectionism thrives in the presence of certainty. It seeks flawless outcomes, clear answers, and definitive solutions. But the pursuit of perfection is ultimately a futile one because perfection is an illusion. There is no perfect way to live, no perfect solution to every problem, and no perfect version of ourselves. The more we seek perfection, the more we close ourselves off to the beauty of imperfection and the richness of the unknown. When we embrace uncertainty, we let go of the need to be perfect, and we allow ourselves to make mistakes, learn from them, and grow. This does not mean that we should abandon all caution or responsibility. Embracing uncertainty does not mean acting recklessly or without thought. Instead, it means recognizing that we cannot control every outcome, and that we do not need to have all the answers before we take action. It means having the courage to step forward into the unknown, knowing that we will learn and grow along the way. This approach requires self-compassion and patience as we allow ourselves the grace to navigate life's uncertainties without the expectation of flawless outcomes. Embracing uncertainty also fosters creativity and innovation. When we are not bound by rigid expectations or predetermined outcomes, we are free to think outside the box, to explore new ideas, and to experiment with new ways of doing things. Many of the world's greatest discoveries and breakthroughs have come from embracing uncertainty and exploring uncharted territory. The scientific method, for example, is built on the foundation of experimentation, trial and error, and the willingness to explore the unknown. Without uncertainty, there would be no room for innovation, no space for new ideas to emerge. In our personal lives, embracing uncertainty can lead to deeper, more meaningful relationships. Often we approach relationships with the desire for certainty that the other person will meet our needs, that they will always be there for us, and that the relationship will remain stable and secure. However, relationships are inherently uncertain, as they involve two individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. When we accept the uncertainty in our relationships, we free ourselves from the need to control or predict the other person's actions, and we allow for a more authentic, dynamic connection. In embracing uncertainty, we learn to trust not only the other person but also ourselves, the ability to navigate the ups and downs of relationships with grace and adaptability. The uncertainty we experience in life also invites us to embrace change. Change is one of the few constants in life, yet it is often met with resistance and fear. Change can be uncomfortable, as it often requires us to let go of the familiar and step into the unknown. However, change is also the vehicle through which growth occurs. When we resist change, we deny ourselves the opportunity to evolve and develop. By embracing the uncertainty that comes with change, we create space for transformation to occur. Change challenges us to adapt, to grow, and to find new ways of being in the world. Another aspect of embracing uncertainty is accepting that life is not a linear journey. We often want life to follow a predictable path, a path that leads us from one goal to the next with clear direction and purpose. However, life is messy, non-linear, and full of twists and turns. The uncertainty of life allows us to explore different avenues, to make mistakes, and to learn from our experiences. There is no single right way to live, and there is no guarantee that things will turn out the way we expect. Yet it is in the unfolding of life, uncertain, unpredictable, and at times chaotic, that we find our true potential. By releasing our attachment to a specific outcome, we open ourselves to the richness of life's experiences, both the successes and the failures, the triumphs and the disappointments. As we learn to embrace uncertainty, we also begin to cultivate resilience. Life will always present challenges, obstacles, and setbacks, but it is through these difficulties that we develop the strength to persevere. Resilience is not built in the absence of uncertainty, but through our ability to navigate it with patience, courage, and determination. Each experience of uncertainty offers us an opportunity to strengthen our inner resolve and to become more adaptable in the face of life's challenges. The more we embrace uncertainty, the more we realize that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way, and that we are not defined by the outcome, but by our ability to face the unknown with grace and perseverance. In embracing uncertainty, we learn to live more fully. Rather than waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal conditions, we begin to engage with life as it is. We learn to take risks, to try new things, and to make decisions without the need for complete certainty. We allow ourselves to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to learn from them. We come to understand that growth is not about having all the answers, but about being open to the journey, trusting that each step forward, no matter how uncertain, is an opportunity for learning and growth. Life's uncertainty, rather than being something to fear, becomes something to embrace, as it is in this very uncertainty that we find the potential for transformation, creativity, and personal evolution.